What is going on, my people? Welcome back to the Modern Leadership Book Club. Super pumped up for today, part 3 of Dare to Lead. This book has been extremely powerful. I know I talked about it in the comments a second ago. First off, welcome to the call. Super pumped to have you here. Julie is here. Watch out, 9.5. A 9.5. I love that, Julie. Do want to do a little roll call to see who's here. But for those who are joining us for the first time, we have a business leadership book club. I will leave you the link to the description or in the description below if this is something you're interested in doing. We're picking really powerful leadership and business related books. This one, Dare to Lead, such a powerful book. I've gotten so much from that. You're going to hear some of the big takeaways from me here today. Now we have live calls every single Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time so we can break down some of the biggest takeaways from the book and so I can hear from you guys as we continue to grow through this book. Now I do want to say, thank you so much for all of the supporters who are out there who are a part of this group. I think we have like 391 different people inside of the book club. It's just the level of leadership that we have in here is just off the hook. And I also want to do a special shout out to really what I like to consider like our super fans. The people who are like watching all the videos, who are like plugging into everything that we do, who are like even sometimes going to our playlist, hitting play and like letting it play in the background just so they can hear the fire and the excitement and stay motivated. I just want to say how much I appreciate you. And if you are one of the super fans, reach out because I want to do something special for you. But I appreciate you guys so much for being here. I know we dive into these books, we get really deep, and then we do all our shorter videos Mondays on Thursdays about various different leadership topics that are in alignment with a lot of what we teach here in the book. And then longer episodes on Saturdays. This Saturday, we have a powerful workshop about repurposing content for your business. But without further ado, it's time to get into this book. Now, here's the thing. I want to go back. I know at the end of the last live, we started to talk about like 16 different examples of what's called armored leadership, which is what Brené Brown coins as you have an opportunity to be vulnerable, to like grow, to really step in and lead. And these are like the armor pieces that we put on ourselves to prevent ourselves from being vulnerable, from allowing people to have access into our heart. And the way that we kind of broke it down is we started to go through the top 3 that she found. But what I've noticed is after going through all 16 of them, which we're going to take a crash course today through all 16 of them, I noticed it's very like specific to people in a leadership career where they're leading a lot of different people. And I know we have a lot of people in a business leadership book club, right? And so I love how she takes this approach and how she really like thinks about this in terms of like leadership, especially when you're like creating either a huge business or you're part of like a career that you're going to be in for a substantial amount of time. I love how she takes that and teaches in that respect, but I also would love to hear how it applies to business. And so today what I want to do is I want to go through all 16 of these. I think it's like section number 3, where she breaks down all of these different examples of when armored leadership could come up and what she refers to as daring leadership instead, what to do instead of when these uncomfortable situations kind of come up. And I want to share how this applies to business, because I feel like when and this is something that I'm really good at for some reason, that I can take universal principles in one area of our life. Like if I had success when it comes to losing weight, I found a way of taking the universal principles and help me have a success in business, or helping me have success when it comes to being a parent or a spouse or whatever. And so that's one of my gifts. And so I want to translate a part of this towards our business owners who are out there. Okay. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through these 16. And then we're going to call it a day, and then we'll have more, not only inside of our app as we go throughout next week, but also on our next call, okay? So now we kind of talked about these first 3, but I want to go through them very, very briefly. And these are the things that we throw up in front of us to prevent ourselves from like opening our heart to people, but also actually being vulnerable as a leader. And from what we've read so far, because I'm on page 78 if you got your book, from what we read so far, we know how important it is to be vulnerable, because it doesn't mean that you're weak. It actually allows people to open up and see you as a human, and you get so much more influence that way, but also create an environment of other people being willing to do that. If you are the type of person who throws up your armor, it's very easy for everybody else to see you modeling that behavior, especially if you're a leader, and them start to throw up the armor as well. I mean, literally being a police officer for 20 years and ending as a police sergeant for LAPD earlier this year, I know how much different armor not only I have thrown up, but also all the other armor from all the other officers and stuff that I was a part of. It's one of those things where you put physical body armor on, but I see so many people putting that emotional body armor on and not allowing it to come down. in the last couple of years, I really feel like I did a good job to start to make that transition for myself. But it's something that I can continually work on. And I know that you guys are here too for that exact reason. Okay. So let's dive into this. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break down the version of armored that the armor is that we could potentially throw up, and what she calls as the daring leadership version of it. Now, here's the thing. Like if you look on page 76, it has all 16 of these. And here's the power of this, guys. You're going to see as we go, I do want to hear some takeaways. And by the way, if you enjoy a very specific point that I'm talking about, I want to see like some likes and some thumbs up and stuff like that, because I want to make this a little bit interactive so I can actually see, Trisha, what's going on? So I can actually see that these are the ones that like he hit really near and dear to you. Because honestly, out of these 16, I can see almost all of them are things that I've gone through. Some of them I go through more often than others. But I feel like this is a really good way of being able to like look through it and see which one you're kind of going through and then finding the answer to it. So I feel like this is kind of like one of those books where I'm going to probably keep it around. So when I do feel like this feeling of like going the opposite direction and not being vulnerable, I can come through here and I can go, oh, it's number 9, hustling for our worth. Now, that's not one that I mean, it's crazy. I think my subconscious mind just called out to that, but that is one that definitely I have to make sure that I pay attention to, right? And then you can go to the other part, which is the daring leadership, and go knowing our value and be able to switch to that chapter and be able to use this kind of like as a guide as you go. Shannon, good morning. Good morning. So I feel like this is a really good guide to have with you so that when you feel that uncomfortableness, and maybe you don't lean into like the daring leader that you want to become, that you take a step back and go, hey, let me look at the book and see exactly what this was and see a different way and a different path to go there. Because it's all about that, like Shannon kind of talked about today. It's bringing that awareness. And when you can bring that awareness, you now have a solution to it because you understand what's holding you back. A lot with life coaching is, good morning, Carmen. A lot with life coaching is like understanding that these things are happening inside of your subconscious mind. And when you bring it into the consciousness, you now have the ability of changing it. It's the same thing here with vulnerability, okay? So if you are struggling with something like that, where you feel like a little bit uncomfortable, go back to page number 77, see which one has come up for you, and then go find the answers. I feel like it's going to be like a universal thing for all of us, okay? So number 1, in armored leadership, the armored leadership approach would be driving perfectionism and fostering a fear of failure. Now, I told you I wanted to kind of describe this in terms of business, but this is something that perfectionism, people think that number 1 is they think it's them striving for excellence, but what it is it's preventing them from actually putting something out and making it better. So if you have a business, how this could look like is that before you actually start taking on clients, before you start putting your program together, before you start reaching out to people and sending them messages, before you create a social media account, you think you have to have everything worked out. You have to have a website, you need to have a blog, you need to have a professional headshot, you need to have all this kind of stuff, right? And it will prevent us from actually being uncomfortable and putting things out there before they're ready. I remember I talked about this last week, but I had this mentor who used to say that 70% perfect is perfect, 100% perfect is failure. Because you will never be 100% perfect, even when you put it out there. But the faster you put it out there, the better you can and faster you can increase it by continuing to grow. So one of the things she says is perfectionism is not self-improvement. So when we think about labeling ourselves as perfectionists, we need to think about this side of the coin, right? She says perfectionism is not self-improvement. Perfectionism is, at its core, about trying to earn other people's approval. Most perfectionists grew up were being praised for achievement and performance. But somewhere along the line, they adopted this dangerous and debilitating system. I am what I accomplish and how well I accomplish it. So really, perfection, she said, perfectionism is a hustle, and it's all based off of what other people think. And so when we realize that that's what perfectionism is, it isn't us striving. Elaine, good morning. It isn't us striving to be completely perfect. It's us striving to not be like judged by others. But the truth is you're going to be judged by others no matter what. I was actually talking to my son about this because he had a big presentation that he had to do. And he's like, man, I don't know what other people are going to think. Like, what if I do this? And I should make my presentation like everybody else's. And I'm like, buddy, like you're going to be judged because you're judging everybody else already, right? Can we agree that everybody in class is judging everybody and they're going to judge you whether you do it or whether you don't, what it looks like or anything. So we're going to be judged. It's just a matter of like being willing to be uncomfortable, lean into the fear, do it anyway. And then afterwards say, hey, this is what I do a little bit differently, right? And so that didn't necessarily help him as much as it does me, because he, he's still like 14, but at the same time, it gives us, or gives him an opportunity for growth. So when he did do it and he's like, it was good, it actually turned out really, really well. I'm like, well, see, buddy, like everybody's still judging you, and it doesn't have anything to do with it having to be perfect. It has to just do with you being willing to lean in and get uncomfortable, right? So in our business, we also have to be willing to lean in and get uncomfortable. And anytime we have that perfectionism thing that comes up, which happens to me too, it's like, I've got to have all of my notes ready. And like, this is barely any notes that I typically would have. I usually would have a bunch of it. I'm like, I'm just going to hit play and just go with it, flow with it, read it from my book and pull it out like however it comes out. And that's just the way that it's going to be, right? And it's taken me so much practice to even get to where I am right now, where I still make mistakes compared to where I was before though. Like it's all about just hitting record, right? Just pushing play, just taking that step and doing it no matter if you feel uncomfortable or not, right? She says, daring leadership is about having conversations about perfectionism within trusting and brave teams can be very healing and powerful. The goal is to get very clear about where you are most likely to get swallowed up by perfectionism. Now, she talks about doing this in a team, but I also think it's something that you should do not only with, if you have a coach who's like your mentor, I think you should definitely verbalize it to them. I have a lot of people that I work one-on-one with, and when this stuff comes up, I want to hear it from them. Like, where are they expecting to be perfect? What does perfect actually look like to them? And I really dive in there because I want them to hear it out loud. Because it makes total sense when it's in your brain, but when you say it out loud, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I was doing that, right? So just having the ability of being able to call out to it is a game changer. That being said, I do want to hear in the comments. I know I love getting some feedback from you guys. When it comes to like a specific area that you feel like you're putting too much emphasis on being perfect, what area of that is that right now? If it's your business, what area of your business? If it's your career, what area of your career? Like what part feels like I need this to be perfect right now? I need to be perfect first, and then I'll put it out there. What is that piece that's coming up for you? All right. All right. The second one, when it comes to armored leadership, is working from scarcity and squandering opportunities for joy and recognition. This is a big one. I mean, this is something that I have a ton of calls on because people very easily can get into scarcity of lack of everybody else is already doing this. There's already this many coaches that are out there. There's already this many health people focused on health. There's already all this stuff. And when we focus our time and attention on there, we're just like, we're realizing that we're in a scarcity mindset. It's our head voice, right? And it actually squanders the opportunities to see success. I was on a call this week with a one-on-one, and we're kind of talking about this of slowing down even in the craziest, busiest weeks that feel like everything's going to terrible places. I'll say that so the YouTube people don't block me. If it's going to terrible places, like sitting down and actually asking yourself, like, what is the best thing that happened this week? What is one thing that actually did turn out well this week? You will be amazed at how quickly your energy turns, but then also how you find those wins, right? Because if we don't have an opportunity to see that or find that joy and observe that recognition, it's very easy to just be thinking about all the things that didn't go well this week, right? What's all broken, wrong, or missing versus what's like awesome, what's like something new that we're creating, what is exciting, what is motivating about what we're doing, what potential for the future does this have? It's very easy to get stuck into what's broken, wrong, or missing, and how we do that is we flip it. And I know she talked a little bit about practicing gratitude. That's the daring leadership. So if you're always thinking about like scarcity or not recognizing yourself for the stuff you're doing, actually practice some gratitude. I know for me personally, my wife kind of gets weirded out, and she's actually here. Sometimes she'll walk downstairs and I'll just have like a weird smile on my face because like every day I feel like I write something while I'm practicing gratitude. I have the most supportive wife on the planet. She's so amazing and beautiful. I love this and this and this. So I try to write something new every single day about 3 things. And for some reason, every day, like her name comes into my mind and I write for a different reason, right? And she looks at me like all weird in the morning time because it's like, 4 a.m. She's like, why are you looking like that, creeper? And it's because like I've been practicing gratitude, but now it's just become a natural thing for me. It's just when I sit down, that's one of the first things that I do, even before I pick up my book to start reading, is I practice gratitude and what I'm thankful for, because I know that if I'm thankful for what I have, not only will I actually get to keep it, but it actually will bring more into the picture. I don't know. It has this weird way of doing it. I don't believe that you just put like energy out into the rainforest or to anything and then just automatically get stuff back. But it just has this weird way of like when I focus on that, it brings my attention to it. And so I'm not only am I doing stuff to protect it, but I'm doing stuff to even grow it even more because that's where my time and my energy is, my focus is. So the recognition is a huge piece, right? All right, number 3. The third one is in armored leadership is numbing. Now we as coaches, we call this buffering, guys. We call this buffering. What numbing is you're taking some actions or doing something that's not in alignment with what your goals are because you don't want to feel that way of how you're feeling right now. This could be like if you're feeling bored, if you're feeling frustrated. It could be like you're about to send a message in your business, right? And you're like, oh, I'm just a little nervous. I think it's time to go clean the house or do the laundry or do X, Y, and Z, right? We can talk ourselves out of doing the uncomfortable things because we don't want to feel that way. We're like, well, if I do this, I'm not going to know what I'm going to say next. Like, what are they going to do? Like, how am I going to make a pitch? How am I going to be able to? And when we do that, we convince ourselves, hey, we should probably do this other thing because it's not going to make me feel uncomfortable like this thing is right here. So what she talks about in terms of the cure for numbing is also the cure for buffering. She says, developing tools and practices that allow you to lean into discomfort and renew your spirit. So it's not the fact that you felt uncomfortable that got you to numb. It's the fact that you felt uncomfortable, but you were unwilling to feel those feelings. Now, I know we talk a lot about like self-confidence being the fact that you have full confidence in yourself, despite any outside evidence that it's possible, because you know there's only 2 possible outcomes, right? You do that for thing you've never done before, and you either succeed or you learn and you grow, right? I can tell you from learning and growing, that's literally why I have a YouTube channel here, because all these things I still screw up, but I used to screw up way more at it, right? And so because of that, I've gone through it, and because I've gone through it, so many people now trust me to teach them because I've gone through it myself, rather than just saying, oh, I've heard this stuff works. It's like, no, this worked because this is how I was before, and this is how I made this change, right? And so it's all about developing these tools and strategies and tips to be able to cope with numbing, to cope with your emotions, which for us as life coaches, right? I know I have like so many different life coaches who are inside of our life coach school, the Push Coach certification school that are on right here. And I know for you guys, like this tool of life coaching and understanding how your subconscious mind works, that helps you with your feelings, that helps you with buffering, and it helps you with numbing. But it's just about developing those tools, right? And one of those tools is our YouTube channel here. If you're not subscribed to this YouTube channel, definitely subscribe, because this is one of the main things that we focus on, not only feelings and buffering and numbing, but just like how the subconscious mind works. And when you become aware of it, what you can do when you actually have the keys to the kingdom, because you know what's actually holding you back, right? So that is the number 3. All right. Number 4, it says propagating the false dichotomy of victim or Viking, crush or be crushed. Now, how this one can show up in our business is thinking that everything's working or everything's broken down. Have you ever had that? Where you're doing some stuff, something kind of comes up, and then before you know it, you convince yourself that nothing is working in your business. Nobody's clicking on your posts. Nobody's signing up for whatever. Like, we can literally convince ourselves that like it's a sabotage and like the rocket's going down and it's about to explode. And it was like sometimes 1, maybe 2 or 3 different things that went wrong. And there's all these things that are going well, but we're just not focusing on it, right? So it's very easy to get into this dichotomy of right or wrong, good or bad. And what she says is the beautiful place is in the middle. I love how she kind of describes this. She describes it as it's showing up in our vulnerability and our courage, and above all else, being both fierce and kind. So it's being vulnerable and courageous. It's the both. It's not the or, right? It's the and. It's not a good or bad. It's like, how can I actually have the best of both worlds? Being fierce and kind. There is a solution to it. I actually did a video this last week. For those of you guys who've been in any of our paid programs, like the M&M, the Master Coach Program, we often will get this book from Alex Hormozi. It's called $100 Million Offers. It is one of the most amazing books ever when it comes to putting together an offer, a grand slam offer, the sales, the marketing, all that kind of stuff. The way that Alex communicates is there's a lot of potential shame and guilt is in the way that he communicates. Like, he will call people out. And there's certain people who love and enjoy that. Sometimes I do, because I feel like I'm challenged when he actually does that. But sometimes not so much, because it feels like there's a message there that I want to connect to, but my brain doesn't want me to connect to it because of how he communicates. For me, like, it is a great opportunity. It's the reason why I made that video, is like, I wanted to share this thing that he basically said, and I used the words to actually humiliate and guilt myself. Both humiliate and guilt, believe it or not, which we'll talk about next call, because she dives deeper into what the differences are. But I was using that to shame, guilt, and humiliate myself. And I was like, why am I doing this? And it's because of the way that he communicates. So my thought is like, how can I get that message? Because his message was super powerful for that one word, or that one question that he asked me. How can I get it to more people without them shaming, guilting, or humiliating themselves? And that's why I created that video. It's doing pretty well. I think I have like 100 and something different views in just like the last 3 or 4 days. It actually was one that I uploaded on Monday. If you haven't seen it, it is I think I titled it like how Alex, the number one humiliating question that Alex Hormozi asked me, something like that. You can go to my YouTube channel at Modern Leadership and you can find it. But it's because I was thinking like, how could I do both of those? A lot of people want to be like all the way over here or all the way over here. My thoughts are like, how can I excel and do both of them? And that's really what she's talking about here, is like, how can you be both fierce and kind? Right? Because you can be both, and it's not just the dichotomy of either over here or way over here. Yes, having these dichotomies over here will like be polarizing. I don't want to push a certain amount of people away. I mean, if you don't connect with me, I don't want you to be around, right? I mean, you wouldn't be here if we get to like 22 minutes and you didn't connect with the message that I was sharing, right? In this book that we're like talking about, right? And so I do kind of like want to push certain people away, but I don't want to like get more attention and just get people super excited. That's not the right people to be attracted to me. I like to live somewhere in the middle where you can excel at both of them. And that is really what she talks about when it comes to this version of daring leadership, which is practicing integration, the back and forth dichotomy that you have going on, all right? All right, number 5 is being a knower and being right. Now, this one can be one of those things where if we are learning something new, if somebody's telling us something, they're coaching us even, they're giving us some advice, and we're just like, oh yeah, we knew that. Oh yeah, I already knew that. Oh, yes, I'm already doing that. And not from a perspective of like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like I am doing that, but I want to make sure that I'm doing it to the nth degree, like how I want it to be done. It's more like they're kind of just saying and dismissing it because they know it, right? And a lot of times this could be brought up. I know it's been brought up by me before because I don't want people to think that I just don't know that, or I wasn't doing that, or that like I'm just, I don't know, that I'm not knowledgeable in this field. But in reality, when you're able to lean in and you're able to go, you know what, whether you're doing it or not, like I'd love to learn more about this. And you're like trying to like seek to understand even more rather than just closing the door and saying, I already know that. It gives you the greatest opportunity, number one, for growth, but also so that people know that you're human, that you don't have to know everything. One of the highlights that I have in here is, she says, for many people, the need to be a knower is driven by shame and for some even trauma. Being the knower can save people in hard situations, and it's easy to buy into the belief that being a knower is the only value that we bring to relationships and to work. So thinking that you need to have all of the answers is not the truth. I've done a lot of videos about that when it comes to leadership. Like a lot of times people think that leaders always have the answers. They don't have the answers. They make decisions based off of a limited amount of information, and they don't beat themselves up later with any new information that they receive. They're like, this is the information that I had, this is the decision that I made. But they're constantly willing to learn, grow, and evolve. So even for me, like let's say, for example, run Facebook ads, and I have a YouTube channel, and I have somebody who like just started working or doing YouTube or just started doing Facebook ads. I'm still like, hey, yeah, what are some things you're doing that are working right now? What are some things that you could teach me, right? It's the same thing with my health and fitness. I lost 100 pounds, right? But I still am looking to, how do I become healthier? What are some different foods that I could eat? What are some different exercises that I can do? Because I'm constantly learning to grow and not just thinking that I know it all in that specific area, right? She says, the daring leadership, she says, there are these strategies she said, these are 3 strategies that I've seen to work transform always knowing into always learning. One of them is having the right questions is more important than having the right answers. I love that so much. You guys know that because I'm like the coaching question guy, right? I have my own life coach certification school because of that, because I love the power of questions. So she says, but it's having the right answers can be helpful, but not as helpful as having the right questions. So really focusing and shifting from being right to wanting to get it right. Like, how can I get it even more right? This opens the door to so much learning. I know that in the police field, I would have people who constantly say that they know everything to do. They know what they should be doing. If you've ever heard this, even when you're in your coaching, while you're coaching people, they're like, I know what to do. I know what to do. Well, just knowing what to do is not all they need. It's kind of like that's what they think they did. They need to know it. But in reality, a lot of it is up here, right? And when we can realize that just asking the right questions is how we can get people to open up to that. But also we need to model that behavior ourselves and be willing to ask those questions to ourselves so that we can continue to grow, right? So that's daring leadership. She says, being a learner and getting it right than having to be right, all right? Number 6, armored leadership, is hiding behind cynicism. She says, we use cynicism and sarcasm to get out of contributing free cards. Meaning we say something, we do something to kind of test the waters. And then if it doesn't work, then we come back and say, oh yeah, I was just joking. Like whatever, right? Or we poke fun at certain people, the same thing. And then if something were to come up where they're like, hey, don't talk, oh, I was just joking. You kind of go back on that. But in reality, what you're doing is you're like testing the waters, right? I know a lot of my previous people that I have worked for back in the day would use this, especially in the police field, sarcasm and cynicism, right? But she said the opposite of that is this daring leadership. She said modeling clarity, kindness, and hope. So she broke this down into 3 different things. She said, number 1 is staying clear and kind. So just saying what you actually mean. Don't beat around the bush, just saying the way that what you mean. Number 2 is practicing the courage to say what you mean and mean what you say. Cynicism and sarcasm often mask anger, fear, feelings of inadequacy, and even despair. So if you notice that some cynicism or some sarcasm starts to come up, stop yourself. And this has actually been very helpful for me when it comes to sarcasm. I stop myself and I go, what is this trying to mask? What am I trying to use this to protect myself? What am I protecting myself from by saying this or by doing this? And I realize that a lot of the times it's selfish and I don't say that thing. And then she said the third thing is the antidote is cultivating hope. So she says, if what's under cynicism and sarcasm is despair, the antidote is cultivating hope. Guys, I feel like as leaders, as business owners, our job is to give people that 4-letter word called hope. If we get to the end of a video, a training, a post, and we give that person the ability of saying, this might be possible for me, this is something that I could actually do, it transforms their life. And it's just something that we get to give them every single time that they watch our stuff, that they look at our posts, that they spend time here on these live calls. If there's anything that I want to give you, it's hope. Because I can tell you, no matter where you are, there's hope for you to just completely turn it around. And yes, we're going to be here to help you do that. But I promise you that you are more than capable of doing that. And when we can share that message with people, it's just a different level of connection, especially when we actually believe it. I'm not trying to say that I try to give people hope and I do it with the intent of getting something back. No, I do it because I literally really do want to give people hope, because I know hope is what kept me taking action. It kept me staying consistent. It kept me plugging in. And when it did, I'm like, this is the greatest gift that I can give to anyone else. I remember when Josh Coates first talked about this, he talked about riding on the coattails of somebody else, right? Maybe you don't have belief in yourself. Maybe you don't have hope right now, but being able to ride on somebody else's coattails is incredible, because they can transfer that hope and that belief in you. And then the only thing that you have to do, the caveat here is once you do that, you have to then offer and extend your coattails to someone else too. And that's what I really feel like business is such a great opportunity to do, because we have to give hope to people who may not think it's possible right now, right? All right. Number 7 is using criticism as self-protection. She says there's 2 things that she finds in this area. One is nostalgia and the other is the invisible army. She says sometimes when we have a new idea hits the table, and I heard this all the time, is this is just how we've done it, and we've never done it that way. We have a lot of people in our business, and they're like, well, this is the way that I've always done it. I've always done it on Instagram. I've always done it over here. I've always done it here and here and here and here, right? This is just the way that we do it. And it's well, but how is that? Where has that gotten us, right? If that's working, that's cool. But if not, how about if we think about something else entirely different? And so whenever you get back into well, this is just the way that I always done, it's one of those triggers where you're like, oh, let's hold on a second. Let's think about maybe there could be a different way of doing this, right? The next thing she says is the invisible army. You'll hear people start to say, well, we don't want to change course. We don't like the direction, or we don't. And when they say we, she actually likes to ask them, who's this we? Because you come to find out, like a lot of times, and she says this later in the book, we sometimes will make up this false army because we want to feel like it's not just us. And when you actually boil it down, maybe it is just one or two specific people, right? And so really being open to the possibilities of changing this, which is, we're going to dive into the daring leadership right now, is just when you start hearing yourself say, we, have this be like a red flag for you to open up this book and remind yourself, all right? She said, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, I want to say I contributed more than I criticized. So making contributions and taking risks is the daring leadership answer. She's like, if you're going to tear something down, you have to offer a specific plan for how you would rebuild it to make it stronger and more substantial. This is one of those things, and I actually did have this in my police career, is like, if you have a problem or something that's come up, also give me like one or two different solutions that you have to fix that problem. And I got to tell you, like when I would have a situation like that where I'd have a problem and I brought a solution to it, I can't tell you like how much that actually elevated their influence, my influence for them. But also like when I had people that I was leading as a police sergeant, the same thing. When they bring me stuff back and they're like, hey, here's the issues we see, but here's the solution. It's the same with Kurt. Kurt being such an important part of our team, our business team. He sees something, he's like, hey, this is what's going on YouTube when it comes to like watch time and everything. What if we were to do this? It's just a great feeling when you're not just being brought problems, you're actually being brought problems and possible solutions, right? And you get to do this by actually creating that and modeling that behavior yourself, right? So where in your business do you see some issues? And how can you come up with possible solutions instead of just being focused on the actual issues, right? So people aren't making it to your webinar. People aren't watching your videos. People aren't watching your Instagram stories, whatever that is. Like, instead of focusing on that, ask yourself, how could I get more people here? How could I make a bigger impact? What other ways could I do this? If webinar isn't working, what other things can I do? Maybe I can do a podcast. Maybe I can do a YouTube channel. Like, it's just, there's infinite number of ideas, and there isn't one right, best, only way in anything. And so when you realize that, there's infinite number of ways you can be willing to lean in and find so many different ways to succeed, all right? All right, number 8, we're going to go through these a little quicker because I noticed that it's already 30 minutes, is using power over. So using power over is like, because of your rank, because of the influence that you have, because of you're the teacher in front of the room in your business, workshops or whatever, you're using your power over other people to get them to do other things. And we can try and do this in our business. It's also called convincing. When we're trying to convince people to join our program, we're trying to convince people to buy something. Like, that is not the real way that people like to not only be influenced, but also like when you feel it, you can just feel it and you just don't want anything to do with that, right? So she said, instead, using power with, power to, and power within. So power with has to do with finding common ground among different interests in order to build collective strength. So using your power as a team. I like to use power in terms of like elevating and helping other people lift up and actually take and use some of the power that I've had so that they can actually not only elevate their influence, but so they can elevate their own confidence. Power to translates to giving everyone on your team agency and acknowledging their unique potential. So instead of just being you and you're the head of whatever, you actually bring other people on and you ask for their feedback and you actually allow them to lead certain situations. And then power within is defined by an ability to recognize differences and respect others, grounded in a strong foundation of self-worth and self-knowledge. So being able to see other people's strengths and other people's weaknesses and what you can do to elevate them, at the same time being okay with who you are and your specific strengths. I really love that one a lot. All right, number 9 is armored leadership. This we're going to spend a little time on because this is hustling for your worth. This is actually what got me into the biggest trouble in my police career, because I was giving it all to my career, thinking that if I wanted to promote, I wanted to be the best police officer, I had to work 12-hour shifts, get off of 12-hour shifts, go to 6 hours worth of court, after court, go to a search warrant, after search warrant, go back in for another 12 hours, and I would literally do this. I remember I used to have a pickup truck, and it had a camper shell on it. I would literally just sleep in the back for like an hour or two and then just go back to work for another like whole big stretch of days. And it really took a real emotional toll. And the more that I did it, the more that I would wear my badge of honor that said, hey, look at me, I'm working myself to death here and I'm like a zombie, right? And she says, and this one really hit home, she says, when people don't understand is when they're strong and where they deliver value for the organization or even for a single effort is not based on their hustle. She's like, and not the good kind of hustle, the kind that's hard to be around because we are jumping in everywhere, including where we're not strong or needed to prove we deserve a seat at the table. This is one of those things where Maybe you're not good at a specific thing in your business. And I think you should develop and become better at it, right? But you also don't have to take on 72 different things, right? One of the things that I do is every year I pick a thing that I'm going to focus on and put my time and attention on. Obviously, you guys know that's YouTube because it's June 1st. I'm about my halfway mark. And by the way, we're halfway through my actual goals when it comes to YouTube. I'm super pumped about this. I love giving teaching and training at this kind of level. I hope you guys enjoy it too. But I'm going all in with YouTube. One of the things you're going to learn about this weekend, if you make the call with Kurt, is I literally just record YouTube and I give him the keys to the kingdom to do whatever it is he wants with it. So he'll take it. He'll put something up on Instagram, something up on Facebook, something up on LinkedIn, something up over here. He'll put some shorts. He'll put some reels. He'll put some stories. Like, he does all of this with just a very minimal amount of content because I'm all in with YouTube. I'm all in going into my community tab. I'm all in with checking the statistics. I'm all in with like using my email list to drive people here to YouTube because not only do I love it, but a lot of people do love it. They love this atmosphere of being able to like lean into this book, and it's free, right? It's like free personal development and personal growth on YouTube. But I'm going all in. Can you imagine if I was doing this and I was trying to do Instagram lives, and I was trying to do Facebook lives, and I was trying to do a podcast, and I was trying to do this? No, I'm in like the repurposing world, which is like I go all in with one because I know that if I try to know everything, like I'm just going to be completely watered down. So that's how this can show up in our life too. We're just trying to take and learn and excel at everything. When in reality, if we're like, hey, you know what? This is going to be my year of YouTube. I'm going to go all in with this. And we learn as much as we possibly can there. It really does help not only your physical health, but your mental health. And it definitely helped mine. She says, the daring leadership piece to this is knowing your value. She's like, instead of a 10-person race, we start to develop a coordinated relay in which our teams baton toss to each other's strengths instead of vying to run the whole stretch alone. Last weekend, we had a workshop talking about that. When is it time to outsource in your business? When is it time to hire somebody in your business? Because right now, you have the baton if you're a solopreneur and you're running the entire race yourself. And it's exhausting and it's tiring and you're going to get better at it. But at the same time, what if you had somebody else that was a speed runner where you could run to them, you could toss the baton and they would run, they pass it to somebody else and then also come back. And by the time you got it, you were like, I'm rested. I got some sleep last night. I'm ready to go. And so you're able to run even faster. And then they're able to run even faster because you've given them a break. It's just this great analogy of like really what business is like. If you haven't seen that replay, definitely go back and watch that one from last week. But it's all about thinking about how can I lean into this, not thinking that I have to know it all, but also just knowing that you bring value and so do other people, right? Getting other people involved instead of making this a one-person show. All right, number 10, armored leadership, leading for compliance and control. She says, the armor of compliance and control leads us to strip work of its nuance, context, and larger purpose, then push down for task completion, all while using the fear of getting caught as motivation. Not only is it ineffective, it shuts down creative problem solving, the sharing of ideas, and the foundation of vulnerability. So leading from compliance and control, I can really connect this with like coaching, for example. So one of the things we do as push coaches is we typically will put together trackers for our clients, right? Or trackers for our groups. And leading with just like, you've got to do this, this has to be done. And if you don't do this, this is all what's going to happen. Like there's a certain level of accountability that has to be built in there, but also the opposite of like putting too much energy and effort into that could actually prevent them from showing up. It could get them into this point where they're just showing up to check the box because they don't want to get in trouble. There's a different caveat to that than just like, hey, we talked about your goals. You really want these goals. You're so excited about your business goals. Like this is going to create some incredible things for you. Let's reverse engineer it. Come up with a list of tracker of like things for you to do. And these are the steps for you to take. All right. Let me know when you're taking these steps, and when you're not taking these steps, it's okay. We'll jump in. We'll figure out why you're not, and then unlock it so that you can start taking those steps moving forward. And so you're not just taking those steps because you're like, I have to, because my tracker says. Can you feel that energy when you're like, I have to do this. I have to go through my check boxes. I have to do my to-do list, versus saying, it's going to be changing somebody's life. There's somebody out there who doesn't even believe it's possible for them right now. And I'm going to make this post, this video, this YouTube live, this whatever, to basically show them that it's possible for them. I'm going to give them hope, and they need it now more than ever. Yes, there's going to be some haters. There's going to be some people who don't watch. That's cool because I'm willing to lean in and find the people who do need me. And when you lead with that, It's just an entirely different energy, and you're leaning into your heart instead of your head. Your head says, I have to do this or I'm not successful. Your heart says, like, I just got to put it out there and find my right people, right? And when you lean into that, you notice that you will rock that to-do list, but it comes from a different level of energy. So I definitely love how she says that. She says, daring leadership is cultivating commitment and shared purpose, kind of like what I talked about. She says, take the time to explain the why behind the strategies and how tasks link to ongoing priorities and mission work. So when it comes to like running a team, you definitely want to share the why with them. Like anytime I ask Kurt to do something, I don't want to just say, hey, can you do this? I describe why, the impact that it's going to make, what my thoughts are about it. I ask for his feedback. What do you think about this? And I do this with Teresa all the time. This is like, and she kind of gets irritated with it because sometimes we're just like on date day and I'll just ask her some questions about business. She's like, hey, it's not business time. But it's because I love talking about like different ways that we can get all and everybody else involved, right? So taking the time to why, or to define the why is important, but it's 10 times as important for you to define your why. So when you're waking up at 3 a.m. like me to do your business, when you're not feeling great that day, when you have a live call where you're like, I really need to lean into this, you have to really focus on your why. Why are you even doing this? It's one of the strategies we use inside of the Push Coach Certification School is like really asking people like, why are you doing this? Why is this so important to you? Why are you even creating this business? Why is this so important and meaningful to you? What is this going to make possible that's not possible right now? And when you ask those questions, you can actually get to your why. So the solution to this is finding your why and sticking to it, reminding yourself, especially in the times when you don't feel like doing it. Like the times when you feel like doing it, that's awesome. But if you don't feel like doing it, really, and especially in those times, definitely revisit why you're actually doing that. All right. One other thing that she talked about in this one is paint done. I just want to bring this up real quick because this is a very, very like powerful concept that I'm going to use. And that is like whenever somebody, when you give somebody like a direction in terms of like wanting them to do something, or you're having a coaching session, like really get them to define, or you to define what actually done looks like, right? So if you have a business and you're asking somebody to edit your podcast, define what done looks like. Does it look like them just like taking the audio and sending it to you? Or does it look like them putting a bumper, them putting the regular podcast, and then at the end doing an ad, and then writing the copy, and then, then sending it to you? You have to get very clear. Like she says, clear is kind. And the more clear you are, the more you're able to define what done is, the better. So if you have somebody who's giving you some ideas of like, hey, can you do this, this, and this? Ask them to paint done. What does it look like? What does the finished product look like? So that I can actually reverse engineer it, right? Because if you're not clear on that, it's very hard to kind of like be able to, hold yourself to that standard. But if you have a business and like, let's say you're outsourcing something, definitely paint what done should look like, or it's not fair to the other person. All right, number 11 is weaponizing fear and uncertainty. She says, in politics, religion, and business, you can actually keep people afraid and give them an enemy who is responsible for their fear. You can get people to do just about anything. But that's not the way that we want to lead. We don't want to lead people that way. She's like, this is the playbook for authoritarian leaders here and around the globe. She's like, in short term, it's going to get people to like actually take action. But she's like, in the long term, we're going to face really complex problems when we're fearing or guilting or shaming or trying to get people to lean into like the uncertainty to get them to take action. She says, instead, acknowledging, naming, and normalizing the collective fear and uncertainty. She's like, we need to be available to fact check the stories that our team members might be making up, because in scarcity, we invent worst case scenarios. She's like, this is incredibly there is incredible relief and power in naming and normalizing fear and uncertainty. So a lot of times, even when it comes to empathy, this is something that I've learned from a mastermind that I was a part of. A lot of times just naming the emotion is enough, because it puts into words how we're feeling. This is the same thing as what she's saying here, is like just talking about the fears, just like talking about it out loud. I remember like when they were talking about the recession for this year, right? Like so many people were like so nervous about it. And so you call out to it. I heard some podcasts about it. I learned a little bit about it. I'm like, oh, this is not a big deal. This is like what we do every, certain amount of years, right? Instead of using that fear to go, oh my gosh, the recession, we should do this and this and this and this. Instead of using that, just like learning a little bit more about it, calling out to it and actually understanding it. It gives us so much more of clarity, because we're, instead of like feeling emotions and taking actions that like we don't want to take, we actually can use some logic here and actually slow down. All right, number 12, getting to the end. Rewarding exhaustion as a status symbol and attaching productivity to self-worth. She says the idea of doing something that doesn't add to the bottom line provokes stress and anxiety. I could feel that too. She's like, it feels completely contrary to what we believe if we want to achieve in a life. We convince ourselves that downtime, like playing with our kids, hanging out with our partners, napping, tooling around in the garage, or going for a run is a waste of precious time. She's like, why should you sleep when you can work? Have you ever heard that? I'll sleep when I'm dead. This is one of those that I definitely need to lean into, because rewarding exhaustion as a status symbol, not only does it bring your productivity down, but you're teaching and modeling that to others. I like to take it a step further and like, what am I teaching my kids if this is what I'm doing, right? So I don't want to lean into that. So instead, she says, model supporting rest, play, and recovery. So modeling and supporting rest, play, and recovery. If we want we want to live a life of meaning and contribution, we have to become intentional about cultivating sleep and play. I know so many times, like when Teresa convinced me to take a second, like on vacation and just chill a little bit and like not have a spontaneous plan that I come up with, right? She likes to joke around saying that like my spontaneous plan is like I have it all written out like in 4 different things, and I'm like, hey, we're gonna be spontaneous today. Here's the 4 things we're gonna do. She's like, you kind of missed the point, right? It's because I do feel that way. I feel like if I don't have something that's actually moving the bottom line, then I'm actually not moving forward, which is not really the truth. When I take the time, when I sleep, when I, for me, play video games, when I play with my kids, I go out on a walk or I do something else. I watch some TV. Actually just got done watching The Last Dance. It's like a series that was made around the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. Like when I do that, it like actually does allow me to give myself a little bit of extra time and space to recover so that I can really come back the next day. And so many times when I have this, I know Trisha, she says, I so often say sleep when I'm dead, for sure. But when we realize like how we do come back when we do that, like when we do take that, I know Trisha, you just got back from a cruise. Like, how do you feel after you get off of a cruise versus how you feel in the normal day to day? It's just a game changer if you've given yourself that chance, right? So she said, have a model that supports rest, play, and recovery. All right. Number 13 is tolerating discrimination, echo chambers, and fitting in culture. This is one of those things where I did, like the fitting in culture was a big deal when it comes to like the police field. And that was like, you had do and say and the tactics of each other and all that kind of stuff. You wanted to really fit in and be like one of the tough people, right? I don't know why that was the case, but it definitely was throwing up armor, because it was just like, you're just saying what you think other people want you to hear rather than what you truly do mean. You know, when you hear something like in an office or in an atmosphere and you're like, that's not right. And you kind of like keep it to yourself because you're like, I just don't want to be like shame or guilted or whatever. Like if I were to lean, this is one of those moments where you would lean in. She said, daring leadership is cultivating a feeling of belonging, inclusivity. There you go. Sorry, Teresa just walked in. And diverse perspectives. She's like, only when diverse perspectives are included, respected, and valued can we start to get a full picture of the world, who we serve, what they need, and how to be successful, how to successfully meet people where they are. Daring leaders fight for the inclusion of all people, opinions, and perspectives because that makes us all better and stronger. So one of the things that I did that actually really helped me in this area, I'm actually going to pull it up right now on my computer so I can read it to you guys, is I have an affirmation that I put together when I was going through a messaging program. What a messaging is kind of like the atmosphere that is around your business and your personal like life. Like when people see you, what do they think about? And so when I have this message of family, of health, of impact, of leadership, like people think of me in those sort of respects. So I was putting together my message. And one of the things is like, what is something that you want to stand for? And what is something that you want to create around you? And so one of the things that I came up with, and I've said it over and over and over again, because it really does help me to stay true, is I say I'm creating a diverse team of people where everyone feels they belong, regardless of their race, age, sex, orientation, etc. I place where they aren't beating themselves up, they aren't working themselves to death, and are coming from a place of empowerment and letting their stories be proof that it's possible for others too. So I have this affirmation that I just say over and over and over again. And so when something comes up where it's out of alignment from that, it's so much easier for me to step up and say something because I know that I'm creating a team of diverse people where everyone feels like they belong, regardless of their race, age, sex, orientation, whatever, a place where they can feel comfortable being themselves. And when I say that over and over and over again in the affirmations, it makes it so much easier for me to realize if this armor's kind of coming up and I'm like, well, should I make a comment? What are people going to think? Instead, I lean in and I say it anyway. She says, let me see what oh yes. So that one was cultivating culture of belonging, inclusivity. I don't know. I just can't get that word right. And diverse perspectives. All right. Number 14 is collecting gold stars. When you become a leader, when you become a business owner, it's really cool. Like in the early stages, when you're collecting your gold stars, you're like, okay, this happened. This is a win. This is great. But as a leader, the switch that needs to go on, because there is really a lot of power in like recognizing other people. And I think that's such an important piece. And I know when I get recognized, that's one of my love languages. And I'm like, oh, I love that so much, right? But instead of like receiving them, now you have to start giving them. So we start recognizing others rather than looking for recognition for ourselves. This is the difference between this. Is like instead of you collecting gold stars for yourself, you start giving out gold stars to other people. She says in daring leadership role, it's time to lift up our teams and help them shine. This is one of the most difficult hurdles of advancement, particularly for those who have been used to hustling or don't know exactly where to contribute value once the areas where we contributed value before are delegated to those coming up behind us. So once we give things away, it's kind of hard for us to technically be recognized because we're giving away the opportunity to be recognized because we're giving some of those things away. And so this gives us the greatest opportunity to recognize others. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I recognize others and I give them that, not only that boost of confidence, but hope and excitement, it actually does help me as well. It makes me feel even better because I'm giving them the recognition that they deserve, right? And so instead of collecting gold stars, it's time to start giving gold stars. So anytime you're looking for like some kind of like recognition for yourself, ask yourself, how can I give recognition instead, right? That's a game changer. All right, number 15, zigzagging and avoiding. Zigzagging and avoiding. She's like, zigzagging is a metaphor for the energy we spend trying to dodge the bullets of vulnerability, whether it's conflict, discomfort, confrontation, or the potential for shame, hurt, or criticism. I tend to zigzag in times of vulnerability. She says, like, when I need to make a difficult call, I'll write a script, and then I'll convince myself that I should just do it the following morning, and then I'll draft an email, and I'll be like, you know what, I should put it out on my social media. And like, she's running around in circles so much that she's not actually doing that thing, right? So anytime you're zigzagging around, like, I'll just do this later, you're putting it off, doing all those kind of things, that's evidence that you're leaning into zigzagging and avoiding, and you're putting up some armor because you're trying to protect yourself, right? Instead, talking straight and taking action. She's like, it's actually much less scary and intimidating to apprise the situation from a face-first position rather than looking back over your shoulder while you're running. So instead of looking over your shoulder and running, it's time to lean in, and whether or not you do it right, it doesn't matter. All it is like, I'm willing to be clear and kind, right? Because clear is kind, and they're just saying the way it is, and just leading with that way, as opposed to just putting up your armor. She said, we love the truth because it's increasingly rare. Like, most people don't speak the truth. They just speak what everybody else is going to feel good about. They speak about like what everybody else is going to agree with. And sometimes the truth hurts, but it doesn't necessarily like, it also creates a whole lot of connection and truthfulness, and it creates integrity. And it's one of those things where I do want people to tell me the truth. I don't want them to be zigzagging all around the place, right? So whenever we come into a business or a company that's in alignment with that, I don't know about you guys, but I feel incredibly great about that. And I give all of my business to that person or to them because I'm like, no, that person has full integrity, and I know they do, and I know they're doing the right thing for the right reasons, even if they don't win in the end. It's such a game changer when you find people like that. Number 6 is leading from hurt. She says, to put it in simple terms, we work our stuff out, she doesn't say stuff, on other people. And we can never get enough of what it is that we're after because we're not addressing the real problem. This is when you have situations going on at home. You have situations that you are going outside of your business and you bring it into your business. It's also when things are not going on in your business and you're bringing it into your personal life, right? And you're taking things out on other people because of the stuff that you're leading through, right? You're trying to lead, or you're leading from hurt. Instead, she said, lead from your heart, which for our push coaches, you guys know that's what we're all about, right? She says, as daring leaders, we have to stay curious about our own blind spots and how to pull these issues into view. And we need to commit to helping the people we serve find their blind spots in a way that's safe and supportive. I can't tell you, having a coach is the most important thing when it comes to finding your blind spots. It is somebody who is willing to call you out, to show you your blind spots, for you to get uncomfortable and go, man, I didn't even know that I had that, and then help come up with a solution for you to actually take action to get through it. So many times our friends can't do that. Our significant others can't do that. Our other people in our career can't do that because number one, either they don't have the skill, or number two, they're not going to be able to be vulnerable enough to share that with you. So finding somebody who is a coach, and I'll have one caveat on how to do that at the end, is so powerful because you can allow them to see your blind spots and make sure it's somebody who's willing to call out those blind spots when they happen, all right? She said, putting down the armor. We're going to end out with this, all right? She's like, I will always think that the very best example of vulnerability is saying, I love you first. That one was powerful, right? If you're the first person to say that, that's like the ultimate thing of vulnerability, right? She says, we don't understand that the willingness to risk hurt or failure is what we call courage. Or we don't have the skills to rumble and recover. It's easy to reach for the armor and weapons at the mere whiff of vulnerability. She's like, if shame and blame is our management style, or if it's pervasive cultural norm, we can't ask people to be vulnerable and brave. Shame can only rise to a certain level before people have to armor up and sometimes disengage to stay safe. So what I love about how she ended this is we've got to get comfortable with putting down our armor. Stop using shame for ourselves. And of course, stop using shame in our business. Like stop using shame on social media. I see this happening a lot. I used to do it where you're like, everybody has 24 hours in a day. Well, if you just would get yourself to work out, that is using shame, guilt, or humiliation to get other people to take action. And let me tell you, that is not the form of leader that I want to be, which is why I lean into life coaching so that I can change something else, right? So when you're doing those things, when you're putting stuff out there, realize that being vulnerable and being courageous is really where it's at, and not shaming or guilting or humiliating people into taking action, because that is not the long-term solution. Now, in the next one, I actually started to read this. I couldn't actually put it down. She talks about like the difference between shame, about humiliation, difference between that and guilt, and like we really dive into how to like really recognize when this stuff is like coming up and what the solutions are to that. But I don't know about you guys. I loved all 16 of these. And I actually want to hear in the comments, like which one of these 16 like spoke loudest to you. All right. Which one of these 16 spoke loudest to you? I'm going to actually go back. I'm going to share the one for me. I think you guys already know because I said it already, is number 9, hustling for your worth. Like the hustle your face off culture. That is something that I think has been ingrained in me ever since I was young. I think I had my first paper route when I was 14. I've never had a year where I didn't have a job since then. And I'm 45 right now. And it was all directly tied to my worth, like how much I could hustle and out hustle everybody else, and where my out hustling badge proved to me like how much my worth was. And when I didn't feel like I could give anymore, it kind of got me into feeling like maybe I am not worthy. Maybe I am not going to be able to see success here. And I had to come to grips for that. And start to understand my value and understand really the skill of life coaching so that I can have some tools and some strategies to be able to help me do that. So I want to hear from you guys. Which one of these, especially if you have your book, is the one that most connected to you? Now, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but one of the things we want to do for people who are in the book club is we have master coaches who are in training. And what Josh and I are doing is we're offering people a free opportunity to get on a one-on-one coaching call with our business master coaches in training who are really focused on like understanding the skills of the subconscious mind and learning how to get people unstuck from self-sabotage or things that are kind of like going awry, whether it's in your business or your personal life. I will leave you the link inside of the description if that's something you'd like to do. It is totally free. There's no like weird things about it. It's just we want to get our master coaches more time to practice, and we also want you to experience what it's like to actually have a life coach and really help somebody work through some of the things that you have going on in your business. If you go to, I'll put up in the comments here, modernleadership.us/coach call, you'll be able to see the information and fill out that application. We'll have a master coach in training reach out to you and set something up for free, okay? I appreciate you guys so freaking much. It has been an hour. You are here. You've made it to the end. I appreciate you. I'm going to Well, I'm going to leave you at the end of this the links to the other calls. If you have not made the other calls, this is call number 3. Call number 1 and number 2 are up inside of our app, but also linked to the inside of our YouTube playlist here. And then we will be back on next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific for the next round of reading. And we will also be inside of our app during this next week to really share some of our biggest takeaways. And I do want to end with that. When you guys do have your biggest takeaways from today's call, I want to hear it in the app. Go in the app, make a post, let us know what your biggest takeaways are from today and how you're going to implement this into your life, into your business. And we all have to thank Brené for having such a very powerful book. And we're about halfway through right now. All right, I appreciate you guys so much. You guys have a really incredible weekend and keep leading from the front, all right? All right, bye, everybody.